Hello and welcome to the Covenant Calendar Club. We're so glad that you're here this evening, and we'd like to give you a warm welcome. Everybody, let's welcome our YouTube group. Hello. Hello. Welcome everyone. Tonight's study is going to be presented by Charlene, and she's going to be sharing with us a topic that is really timely, and it's timely because as we move into the truth, the enemy's job is to steal, kill, and destroy the truth as quickly as it goes out. He's right there to try and snatch it up. So we're hoping and believing that this teaching that we're going to be listening to this evening is going to help to defeat the enemy. We're going to defeat the enemy before he comes at us. So Charlene, I'm going to go ahead and give the screen over to you, and thank you for what you're about to present.
And now they're telling me that the survey I filled out wasn't official, and that this one is. Okay, we're just getting all set up here.
It's looking good.
Okay, I guess we're ready. There's been some talk around town about Equinox and Equi-LUX, and this came to our attention quite boldly, about last December, and started looking into it, and we decided that because the year start in Covenant Calendar is so important, that maybe we better look at what else is happening out there so that you can have a ready word to answer. Can everybody hear me okay? And I might be asking for some help, so be ready to unmute your mics. Okay, detecting the Equilux deception. And the question is, why should we even consider Equi-LUX? Many have rightly mentioned a concern about studying any counterfeit calendars. That's on our little Covenant Calendar class here. And we're thinking, wouldn't it be better to just study the true calendar? And of course, that's always a good idea. So the answer is yes, but, and there's always a but. The reason that this study is being presented today is because a very thorough Covenant Calendar study on the Tekufa has already been done. And that means that Tekufa is understood to align with the equinox and not Equi-LUX. I just am thinking that there might be some here that haven't even heard the term Equi-LUX. So I hope by the end of this presentation you'll know what is what. We have about 85 slides to go through. If you have any questions, just write down the slide number and we can pop back to it if you need to have some answers. So we agree that there is one true calendar, but we know when there's a truth, there's lots of counterfeits, and our enemy is up to a lot of tricks in that area. And there is ever only just one truth for anything in the scriptures, including one true covenant calendar. However, there are many counterfeit calendars that must be proven false by a comparison to only the true calendar. And this is what we want to help you with in these classes. And the study today is meant to give you some tools so that you don't have to find them yourself over all the years of study. So we want to give you a head start. Over the years, between Tim and myself, Covenant Calendar has been challenged by many different counterfeit calendars. And you can just imagine the emails that we get from other calendars, you know, you're wrong, we're right, and we get a lot of these, and they want answers from us. So this is just a sample of the calendars that we've been receiving communication about. Lunar calendars, that's by the moon. Solar calendars, by the sun. Then there's luni-solar calendars, which is a moon and a sun. Lunar Sabbath calendars, we're going to talk about that. Barley calendars, they're out there as well. And of course the Enoch-Zadok calendars. We get challenged with all of these. It used to be, a while ago, that they basically all use the equinox as their tukufa, but not anymore. And I'm asking the question, why not? Like, what happened to make this change? Well, I started asking some questions. Who wears the calendar tool belt in this covenant calendar study? And I determined that the covenant calendar has the Melchizedek priesthood in its position, originally based on earth as it is in the heavenly sanctuary. And everything about this calendar is based in covenant Torah. Now, we've used this term many, many times, covenant Torah. And when I say that, I'm talking about these verses specifically, Genesis 1:1 to Exodus 24:11. That is where this complete calendar is found. And then, of course, all of the other books in the scriptures are witnesses.
Amen. Amen.
But there are counterfeit calendars. You know what? They have any old priesthood, originally based on paganism, and also including the priesthood of the Sanhedrin. And these calendars, what we have found, are based in non-Torah books and a lot of pagan traditions. We have not found where one of these calendars can be completely found within the covenant Torah between Genesis 1 and Exodus 24:11, and that's exciting. So Yahuwah always has the last word. But you need to have a tool belt too if you want to understand how this works. So I've put together a little list here of what might be in your toolbox. Along with your scriptures and the Melchizedek priest, you are going to need to have dictionary tools, some basic computer skills, some basic research skills. Everybody can do this. You need to have an understanding of the beginning of the day and the beginning of the month. That's important as well. Another thing is you need to have an understanding of what twilights are, and we're discovering that twilights are that buffer that protect us from violating the commands of Moses of looking to the sun. One thing that's super important is logic and common sense and learning how to ask questions, and you need to know about the year start. So these are some of your basic tools that you'll want to be putting into your tool belt. Now, there's many options for calendar year start, and I'm only going to be naming off a few of them. You'll recognize them. Some calendars start their year with the equinox, and they'll go then to the first new moon that comes after the equinox, and they'll say that's the first day of the year. Some start with equinox, but they'll take the new moon that is closest to the equinox, whether it's before or after. Some calendars go by the Abib of Barley after the equinox. And then there's Equi-LUX. And some will use that, and they'll take the new moon after the Equi-LUX. And of course, Equi-LUX and the first new moon closest to the Equi-LUX. We're going to be looking at some of these calendars tonight. And then there's also the Equi-LUX in this bit about the barley. And like I mentioned last week or the week before, even altitude is now coming in as an option for when the day begins. And I just tell you that the things that are coming out of the closet to challenge calendar is just incredible. The blue writing there, equinox and the first day after, pardon me, let's start over. Equinox and the first day of calendar after the shadow sign, that's your covenant calendar of Yahuwah. And also the Enoch calendar starts that way too. But I want you to know that the covenant calendar and the Enoch calendar are not near the same. There are some, I think, that are feeling that they're the same. They are not the same at all. So there are going to be some challenges. Most calendars historically used to always calculate the feast dates from the vernal equinox. In fact, no one ever heard of an Equi-LUX. I know the first time I've heard this word, which was about 4 or 5 years ago, I just went, I've never heard of that. Like, what is it? So there's a lot of people that haven't heard of this word. With the abundance and the variety of new feast calendars flooding this area, Equi-LUX is beginning to bloom. And I started to say, well, why? Why is this just coming forward with such vengeance, just like a freight train. Let's go back. We need to finish our slide. Maybe it has something to do with the Enoch calendar, because right now that is the closest counterfeit to Yahuwah's covenant calendar today. But guess what? Enoch calendar uses equinox. They've got that part right. So what we're going to do in this study is we're just going to look at 6 mystery questions. Now there's a whole bunch more, but I just zeroed this into 6 areas. Otherwise we'd be here for probably a couple days. So to examine this Equi-LUX problem, being such a huge study, I just chose 6 mystery areas that we're going to examine tonight. Number 1 is Constantine is getting the blame for a lot of things. Number 2, the confusion of calendars. We'll be looking at that. Number 3, we're going to be looking at Equilux disunity. There's an incredible disunity. We're also just going to peek a little bit at the Hebrew evening definition. I know all of you should know this by now, but we're just going to kind of tap into it a little bit. Then there's going to be a section looking to the sun, and our last is a mystery question from Yahuwah. So we'll be delving into these 6 areas. We'll start with problem number 1, and it's Constantine's quote. Constantine made a decision on the changes of the calendar. This was at the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, and it was supported by the ecclesiastical influences from, this was Pope Sylvester of the Papal Church. He was in on the deal. This was his reign from 314 to 335 AD. And Hillel too was in on this Council of Nicaea. He was the president at that point in time of the Sanhedrin. So why was there a change to Equi-LUX? I will give you the quote on the next slide, but this is just an introduction. The claim is made by a lot of feast keepers that used to go by the equinox, that it was Constantine who changed things at his famous Council of Nicaea in 325 AD. It is believed that the March 2021 date was set as the vernal equinox by the Papal Council to prevent Passover and Easter from ever falling on the same day, which in 2018 it does, or it did, even when using the March 17 Equilux that is now being wrongfully named as Tekufa. And I'm saying, how in the world did this happen? This is the quote, and we're going to read it slow because it's just packed with a lot of information. In 325, the Council of Nicaea established that Easter would be held on the first Sunday after the first full moon occurring on or after the vernal equinox. Now I want to talk about that. I was taught that Rome would go by the first full moon, but I thought that the sliver moon also had to be after the vernal equinox. That's not what this quote is saying. It is saying here that Rome is going to take the first full moon after the equinox, and that's it. They could care less about a sliver moon. So let's continue. From that point forward, the Easter date depended on the ecclesiastical approximation of March 21 for the vernal equinox. Easter will be delayed by 1 week if the full moon is on a Sunday, which decreases the chances of Easter falling on the same day as the Jewish Passover. The council's ruling is contrary to the Quartodecimans. They were the 14th day keepers, a term which referred to people keeping the 14th day, which is Passover, and a group of Christians who celebrated Passover on the day of the full moon, 14 days into the month. So what Rome is saying here is that we don't want any chances of our Easter and Passover landing on the same day. So if Passover is going to land on a Sunday, then we'll take the Sunday after. But I've noticed since 2010 that Rome isn't staying to what she had agreed upon. She's changing her rules. So I want to look at 3 calendars, and all of them use Constantine's quote to establish their very own calendar. We're going to just talk very briefly about Barley calendars, the lunar Sabbath calendars, and the Equi-LUX calendars. In the Barley calendars, they're searching for an Abib month. The new year is determined by the Barley in Abib. It is not determined by Rome's calculation of Easter. And then the lunar Sabbath calendars, they need to cite the moon, and they cite the moon for their feasts as well as for their weekly Sabbath. And what they're saying is, when Rome introduced their pagan feast calendar, Hillel too set Saturday as the weekly Sabbath. And so that weekly Saturday on your calendar, the Roman calendar, is not the true Sabbath. So they're saying there's a problem, and that's all going back to Constantine. With all the Equilux calendars that are coming out and looking to the sun, this is the next problem. They're using Constantine's quote as well. And they're saying because Rome uses equinox for Easter placement, is equinox completely pagan? They're saying it is. And the claim is that Equi-LUX is now the true marker for Tekuva and the feast calculation because Rome has changed equinox into something that's pagan. So we're going to look at the Barley first. But I have a question before we go on to the next slide. And it's simply this. You all know what the Mazzaroth is. It's the constellations in the sky, the 12 of them. Is the Mazzaroth pagan because Satan has changed the horoscope into his plans? Something to think about. Do we ignore what the Mazzaroth has to teach us because you have horoscope writings in your newspaper every day? Let's look at the Barley first, and we're just barely going to touch on this. This could be a whole study in and of itself. The Barley calendars, like I said, are searching for Abib. They are not looking for Rome's equinox at all. And it is believed that barley is needed for the first fruits wave sheaf offering. This is the definition of Abib. It's Hebrew 24. It's from an unused root, and it means to be tender, green, a young ear of grain, hence the month name Abib, or Nisan is the Babylonian name. Also Abib, ear, green ears of corn. That's not corn on the cob. Corn is like a grain. And any grain can be Abib when it is in the greening, not just barley. So when you look at this definition from the Hebrew, there is nothing in this definition that says only barley is Abib. Every grain is always in an Abib stage somewhere along the line when it's growing, not just the barley. But a lot of us have been taught it is only barley. It's not true. Fine flour or wheat was given for the wave sheaf. Again, this is a huge study. If you do some checking on Hebrew 5560, you will find that fine flour is soleth. It's from an unused root meaning to strip, like flour as chipped off. And this is very fine flour, a fine wheat meal. And wheat is what was used for the wave sheaf, not barley. This was something we just learned here a little bit ago. It's a really easy study. Didn't know it, but barley is not used for wave sheaf. When you look up the word barley, it is a rough flour. It's Hebrew 8184. The only time that barley was ever used with anything to do with the sanctuary was with the jealousy offering. If a woman was caught in adultery or suspected of, she had to bring a jealousy offering, and this was the barley flour. It is sahora in the sense of roughness. Barley flour is rough. It's not fine. It is not the preferred flour for wave sheaf. Always, always it's wheat. So right there, barley calendars are out. Should be a wheat calendar, if anything. And that's just a simple study. You can do that on your own. And that's all we're going to do for barley. Let's look at the lunar Sabbath, because they're using Constantine's quote to have a lunar Sabbath calendar. We know that the lunar Sabbath calendar cite the moon for their feast and festivals and for their weekly Sabbaths. And these calendars teach that the weekly Sabbath from creation was set by the cycles of the moon. Their Sabbath can be on any cycle of the week, be it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday, Sabbath. It can be on any day of the week. We're going to look at that a little bit later on. But the covenant calendar studies show that the creation Sabbath has always been on the seventh day of the week, and this is proven in Yahushua's resurrection on his Sabbath just 2,000 years ago, and we have a lot of secular historical confirmation with the Waldensians as well. But the Sunday laws were legislated by Constantine in 321, 4 years before the Council of Nicaea, and this caused a lot of persecution amongst the Sabbath keepers, and that is why many of them switched over to Sunday worship instead of the Torah Sabbath to get away from the persecution, and we probably would have done the same thing. When Constantine fixed the Easter date, Hillel II, who was the acting president of the Sanhedrin, what he did is he fixed the pagan Saturday as the weekly day of worship, having 1 day of worship in 7, according to the Talmud. This information that I'm giving you here is what the lunar Sabbath people say. You can go to their websites, and they're saying Hillel II fixed the weekly pagan Roman Saturday as the weekly rest day, and it is a pagan day, so that is not the right day. And this is all going back to Constantine's quote. And that's their reason. Well, what in the world is a pagan Saturday? Someone asked that question. And I just did a little tiny bit of Roman calendar history search. This could be probably a year's worth of study, but let's just look at a little bit. Originally, the early Roman calendar, and this is going back to 63 BC, and that Roman calendar had 355 days per year. So that's kind of a lunar calendar, because the lunar calendar has about 354 days, okay? So originally that Roman calendar of 63 BC had to be reformed by the Julian calendar, which was done in 46 BC. And what Julius did is he made sure that the year had 365 days in the year, because their calendar was getting so off with the seasons that they didn't know which end was up anymore. And by the time Julius actually revamped this calendar, the first year that he did it, if I remember correctly, their year had 455 days or 465 days to try to get the calendar back in sync with the vernal and equinoxes, the vernal and fall equinox and the solstices. But at that time, the Roman calendar did have 8 days a week for even a couple of years after 46 BC. And I also found that the Roman calendar did not have names for the days of their week. They were just lettered A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. There was 8 of them. But as Rome expanded and came into contact with Mithraism, it became very popular as a religious cult within Rome. It just kind of got in there and settled down. Mithraism brought Rome a 7-day week. And not only that, they had days that had the days of planetary gods. Their days had actual names, not letters. A Roman 7-day week can be traced to Caesar Augustus, and he died in 14 AD. So we can find a 7-day week during the time of Yahushua's ministry. Wouldn't have been an 8-day, although there was probably some that were still using an 8-day week. This was all a process. But this 8-day week did not last for long. Now what I'd like you to do is just count the number of gods on this calendar. This is a calendar that was found, and you'll see there's only 7 there. There's not 8. There's only 7. Can you figure out which one is the sun god? Somebody?
Number 2.
You know which one is the sun god?
Is it number 2?
Can you find the moon god?
Is it number 1?
Number 1 is actually Saturn, the Saturn god, Saturnalia. Number 2, you can see the sun rays around the head. That is the sun god. We'll get the names here in a little bit, but I just wanted you to note that this is a calendar that was found at the Baths of Titus that was built in Rome about 79 to 81 AD. So we know by 79, 80, 81, they were starting to use a 7-day calendar. This 8-day week of Rome was gradually replaced with the 7-day week, and over time, the 8-day weeks just simply lost all of its appeal. The 8-day week just never really worked. They tried to, but it just never did. So why did this all happen? And I'm just wondering if history would bear out the reason. So Rome's 8-day week was reduced. But as you can see on this calendar, Sunday is not the first day. So we know that Rome today has Sunday as the first day on the calendar. What we wanted to know is, will the order of the days change with a 7-day week? Just kind of keep those pictures in your mind there. These are the names of the gods, of their 7 gods that was given to them from Matriism. The first one was Saturn's Day or Saturday. Then number 2 had Sun's Day or Sunday. Number 3 was Luna's Day, Moon Day or Monday. And then you have Mars Day or Tuesday. Then you have Mercury's Day or Woden's Day, which is Wednesday, and Jupiter's Day or Thor's Day. And there's your Thursday. And then the last one was Venus Day or Frigg's Day, where we got Friday from. Those were the names of their gods that they had in that order. Just have a couple of quotes here for 2 slides on the history of pagan Sunday with Mithraism and Christianism. The popular worship of Mithra, which was the invincible sun god, became so preeminent in the Roman Empire in the days of Constantine that he decreed the venerable day of the sun to be the weekly rest day of the empire, and that was in 321 AD. One authority points out the influence of Mithraism on Christianity, saying this: Mithraism has so much acceptance that it was able to impose on the Christian world its own Sunday in place of the Sabbath, its son's birthday, which was the 25th of December, as the birthday of Jesus. We're still continuing here. Another author confirms the early Christians had at first adopted the Jewish 7-day week with its numbered weekdays, but by the close of the 3rd century, this began to give way to the planetary week, and in the 4th and the 5th centuries, the pagan designations became generally accepted in the western half of Christendom. So the Jewish calendar was the same. It didn't have names for each day of the week except for the Sabbath. It was first day, second day, third day, fourth day. And sometimes the 6th day was known as a preparation day. But it was the same way with not just the Jewish calendar, but Yahweh's people just had their days numbered. During these same centuries, the spread of Oriental solar worships, especially that of Mithra, in the Roman world had already led to the substitution by the pagans of Dies Solis, that's Sunday, for Dies Saturni, that was Saturday, as the first day of the planetary week. Thus, gradually, a pagan institution was engrafted on Christianity. So you can see here, there's going to be a switch between Saturn's Day and Sunday. What about this lunar Sabbath along with Constantine and Hillel II? Because Hillel II, who was the president of the Sanhedrin, was working with Constantine at the Council of Nicaea in 325, eventually his suggestion was accepted to provide a regular worship day per week for the Jews without any persecution. Remember, these are quotes that are coming from the lunar Sabbath people, okay? They're saying that Hillel arbitrarily chose Saturday as the 7th weekly day of worship for the Jews, and the requirement was that you only needed to have 1 day in 7 to be set aside for worship, and that was according to the Talmud, and it didn't matter what day it was. So he just chose the 7th day of the week, and it happened to be named Saturday at that point in time. Yes, Saturday had been moved to the 7th day position of the week, and that gave Sunday the position of the 1st day of the week. It was a very unique move. Well, why? Sunday did not exist in the 8-day Julian week. Remember, the 8-day week did not have names. It just had letters, A, B, C, D, E. So there was no Sunday in the 8-day week. But now it's going to become the day on which they say Yahushua arose from the dead, and that was going to be declared as Rome's weekly Sabbath to celebrate the resurrection. So the calendar was arranged. The Sun and Saturn positions have to trade. When Rome finally accepted the error that Yahushua's resurrection was on Sunday, the 1st day of the week, then the sun god needed to be placed in day position number 1, not number 2. And I've got the calendar down there. I just took the first 2 gods. Remember, Saturn's god was number 1 position, and the sun god was in number 2. So they did a switch. They took sun god and put him into the number 1 position, and they took Saturn's god and put him in 7th position. But the rest of the days, they did not change any of the order. They left them all the same. So there was a switch here. So Sunday could be the 1st day of the week. There are pagan Saturday claims. This is what the lunar Sabbath people say, or I'm saying, this is what I'm saying. Because of the history between Mithraism, the 7-day week, and Rome, who actually had an 8-day week when this all started out, the lunar Sabbatarians are claiming that the true weekly Sabbath has been completely lost because of what happened here with this switch. The lunar Sabbath people claim that Hillel II's calendar is a counterfeit, especially because he randomly chose Saturday, which was a rather new invention. He chose Saturday as the weekly Sabbath, which is still in alignment with the Talmud, because all you have to do is honor 1 weekly day in 7 for your rest. So they're saying that Hillel II is a counterfeit, and I'm not saying Hillel's calendar is true. It has many, many problems, but they're saying because he went and chose the pagan Saturday as the 7th day of rest for the week, he just did that because of Talmud. So they're saying that's got to go. Therefore, the lunar Sabbath is to be honored as it has not been tainted by Constantine, Hillel II, or any other form of paganism or Christianity. So the lunar Sabbath people are saying that's why you have to honor the lunar Sabbaths, whatever day they fall on according to the moon, because nobody has touched that. But they haven't studied the moon. And the lunar Sabbatarians claim the lunar Sabbath was set at creation week, and that the weekly Roman Saturday can never be trusted as Yahuwah's weekly Sabbath. These are really strong claims. And I've been working with some lunar Sabbatarians, and they are sure. Lunar Sabbatarians do not trust the rabbis to determine the 7th day Sabbath, and neither should you, and neither should I. They don't trust the rabbis. However, there is something else to think about, because the rabbis have a lot of things wrong. I'd like you to look at this calendar very carefully. This is a 7th day Sunday, right there. You can see Saturday is on the 6th day of the week. These calendars are going to be on your walls. In fact, Europe has them already. But they have now placed Sunday in the 7th day position. And this is my question to you. Can you prove from the scriptures that that Saturday on that calendar right there is the true 7th day Sabbath, even though it's in the 6th position? Can you prove it from your scriptures? And if you say you can, I'm asking you, how are you going to do it? Because that's what we need to do. Prove it from the scriptures. There is a solution to this problem. We, along with the lunar Sabbath keepers, need to do a very careful scripture study, and especially on the Exodus 16 quail and the manna, the David and Jonathan study with angry King Saul, A careful study needs to be made of the moon, which we're going to get started on next week, and the Passion account in the 4 Gospels. Those are 4 huge studies. Once you do those studies, you will find out that there is no room for a lunar Sabbath calendar whatsoever. Even just the David Jonathan one just kicks it out. And we don't want to forget the historical account of the Waldensians, because they preserved the 7th-day Sabbath with all of their hearts, with their lives. Okay. Let's look at the third part, Rome's Easter versus the Passover. A pagan Easter follows the full moon after March 2021. The sliver can be sighted before or after the equinox. Maybe everybody knew that, but I didn't realize that. I didn't know that Rome didn't care where the sliver was. They're just looking for the first full moon after the equinox. And they have said equinox is around March 2021. The Passover was usually counted as the 14th day from the sighted crescent moon after the equinox. But again, like I said, Rome doesn't care anything about that. And today, many feast keepers want to move away from Rome's equinox. They're saying it's Rome's equinox. So what they're doing is they're choosing Equi-LUX as the Tekufa alternative. And that's what's putting Passover dates really, really close to Easter on many, many years. And what I'm finding is that Rome has the best of all the counterfeit calendars. Why? Because she can satisfy every counterfeit around either equinox or Equi-LUX, and she's still going to have world acceptance. She's been really, really clever about this whole thing. Lots of study into the calendar. Well, what about Rome's Easter? I was taught that Easter is the counterfeit for Passover, but it's not. Easter is not replacement for Passover, but it is the counterfeit for the Sabbath resurrection. Rome's Easter is always on the same cycle of the week as the scriptural first fruits. Remember, we did the study in Joshua that shows that first fruits is always on the day after the weekly Sabbath within the week of the Passover festival. And Rome's Easter is always on the same day. So they've got part of it right. It's not completely counterfeited. And Easter was always to be dated the Sunday after the Jewish Passover. That was the deal with the Council of Nicaea, that Easter would not come close to Passover. But 20% of the time, Easter does fall before the Jewish Passover just because of the way the calendar falls with equinoxes and the full moon. Because at that point in time, many years ago, the Jewish people would look for their crescent moon after the equinox. But if there was a full moon that was before that, Rome would go with that. So 20% of the time, Easter could be before the Jewish Passover. Now here's a question. If Easter represents the Ascension, how can it be celebrated before the Passover? I'm saying it can't. You can't have an Ascension before you have the Passover sacrifice. And that's why Rome always has her Passover on what is called Good Friday. So she covers all of her bases. So the next question is this. Because the Council of Nicaea set the equinox at March 2021, many are now saying equinox is pagan because that's what Rome did. And I'm saying why? Well, occasionally equinox does occur on March 19th. I don't know if it occurs on March 19th in Rome, but it sure does over on this side of the world. But people are saying because Rome went ahead and set March 20 and 21 as equinox, then it has to be pagan. And I'm saying, can Rome mark the true equinox as being pagan? Let's use our logic and our common sense about this. Does Rome have the authority to do that? To change equinox into a pagan marker? I don't think so. Let's look at some definitions of Equi-LUX because we're going to need to know. The Equi-LUX does not occur at one single calculated moment for every place around the world at the same time. According to man's definition, Equi-LUX is a relative, mathematically calculated, identification of a day when man says the hours of the light and hours of the night are approximately equal. And now man defines these daylight hours as only from sunrise to sunset. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. If you have equal sunrise and sunset times, that is called Equi-LUX. That's according to man's definition. And this is what I'm hearing from feast camps, some of them that we know very, very well. This is what they're saying. Not one of them have given me a definition from the scriptures. They're saying this is man's definition. Let's continue in our definitions of Equi-LUX. It is highly dependent on the refraction of light on the surface of the earth, and the equator is one place where the equinox and the Equi-LUX occur at the same time, nowhere else. And for calculation of Equi-LUX, everybody, you need to have a computer. If you don't have a computer, there's no way you can figure this out. So you're just out of luck. Equi-LUX calendation presents a complete calendar of confusion. And Equi-LUX calendation has been subtly influenced by rabbinic tradition because they wanted to relocate Passover much earlier. Many times the Passover is landing at the end of April and even into May. And now what I'm hearing them say is that's too late for Passover. We need to move it up. So they're using Equi-LUX to move Passover earlier in the month. And all of these Equi-LUX calendars are man's inventions. They are not Yahuwah's design. There is no way. So equinox information for this year, 2018. Equinox occurred on March the 20th. It was at 6:15 in the afternoon at Greenwich. And this is by divine design. And this happened the same time all over the world. Doesn't matter what time zone you're in. When it was 6:15 at Greenwich, it was equinox for everybody in the whole world. Now, this might be confusing. I know a lot of people have trouble with time zones, but man has split up the world into these time zones so that they sort of can keep track of what's going on in the business world. Right up at the top is where you'll have a scale. At point 0, this is where you have GMT time. This is Greenwich Mean Time. When it was 6:15 at Greenwich, and it's saying 0 because this is always calculated from the noon hour. So this is 6 hours and 15 minutes after the noon hour. That was when the equinox happened around the world. But if we go and look at let's see, Africa. Here we go. Africa is 2 hours ahead of Greenwich. So their time is not going to be 6:15 because they're 2 hours ahead. So it would have been 8:15 in the evening when the equinox happened in Africa time and also Jerusalem. Okay, Joy, Matthew, I put this in for you for India. India is 5 hours ahead of Greenwich time. So when the equinox happened in India, it would have been 11:15 at night. I think you can all follow that. I hope you can. It's slide 33 if you have any questions. I've put a marker in here because on the other side of this marker, according to Rome, it is March 21st. So anyone on that side would have their equinox on March 21. Over on the left side of the screen is mountain time, and you can calculate if you're in Pacific time or Central time. But mountain time is 8 hours behind Greenwich time. So when the equinox happened for those that live in mountain time, it was 10:15 in the morning. I'm just going to leave that there for a bit for you to see. So equinox happens, it doesn't matter what time it is for you, if it's morning, noon, night, or midnight, it happens for everybody at the same time. It's very precise. Wonderful design by Yahuwah.
So when Yeshua did his finished work, he did it for everybody at the same time.
Yes, he did. Nobody got treated extra special by, you know, when equinox happens, and we're going to be showing a little graph about this a little bit later on. When equinox happens, it happens throughout the whole world. We won't all get the shadow at the same time because some of us are in darkness or we're just coming into daylight. And we talked about the shadow last week. But the equinox is the same time around the world. It doesn't matter if you're eating breakfast or eating lunch or eating supper or getting ready for bed. It's just that easy. Okay, so that ends that little section. We're going to go into problem number 2, and this, I'm calling this confusing calendars. There has always been many counterfeit feast calendars because that's what Satan is up to confuse us. In recent years, this problem has been escalating an incredible amount. And I know even 10 years ago when I was learning about calendar, or I guess it's more than that, 2006, I found out really, really quick that calendar was a hot topic. And people have been studying calendar for decades, and it was like, you just can't challenge them. They've studied this for hundreds of hours. And it's like, okay, so I just went with what my teachers were teaching me because I didn't know what to do. But I do now. But just in recent years, many are changing their calendars that they had based on equinox. They're switching over to Equi-LUX timing. And I'm saying, what's going on? These are feast camps and feast leaders and teachers that are favorite teachers of mine and yours that have been just absolutely sure when the year starts, and they're switching from equinox to Equi-LUX. I'm going to show you some of those calendars. But first of all, I want to do 4 of these just to give you an orientation of what was going on in the 2018 calendar, just in case people don't really know. This is a Roman calendar and their Easter calculation. So what Rome does is they just determine that March 20 or 21 is the equinox. And indeed it was this year. March 20th was the equinox. And so what Rome does is they just find the next full moon, and then the next Sunday is Easter. So there's the equinox. Rome got that right. And there's the full moon. And where do you think Sunday's going to be? Easter Sunday. Right there. Rome keeps it really simple. Really simple. All she does is say, find the equinox, where's the first full moon, and the Sunday after that is Easter. That's it. No studying whatsoever. That's how Rome calculates Easter. Okay. It's still the Roman calendar, but I want to show you the lunar Sabbath calendar in a simple form. Now don't forget, the lunar Sabbath calendar calculates their lunar Sabbaths and their feast months by the sliver moon, or some of them do it by the conjunction. Some use the full moon now. There's all kinds of variations. This calendar calculates the feasts and the weekly Sabbath according to the moon. And like I said, all phases are used depending on the interpretation. I've heard them all. So you determine the moon phase that you've desired. There it is. This is talking about a lunar Sabbath. Okay, we're not talking about year start. We're talking about the lunar Sabbath. So in the month of March was your first sliver. And that cycle of the month marks your monthly Sabbath or your weekly Sabbath. So the 25th will be a Sabbath. And then, of course, April 1st, which is a Sunday, would be a Sabbath. And they would start their month with the sliver moon as well. Of course, this can move. The next month, your Sabbaths could be on a Tuesday or a Friday. It just depends on the moon. So that's the lunar Sabbath calendar. Okay, let's take a peek at covenant calculation, covenant calendar. It's pretty easy. You determine the March 20th equinox. We all know it was right there on March the 20th. Then the next day, March 21, is the first day of the year, and you simply count 14 days to Passover. It doesn't have to have a moon in it. There's nothing based on the moon in Yahuwah's covenant calendar calculation. And there's one more that we want to look at. This is the Equi-LUX calculation. And it's a counterfeit for sure. So you have to determine the Equi-LUX, and it's usually around the 17th of March. Then you find the next crescent moon, and this year it was the day after. That was pretty handy. Then you count 14 days to the full moon, which was the 31st of March, and Passover begins at sunset on the 31st. And look what happens, everybody. Passover day is on Easter Sunday. That's your Equi-LUX calculation. I know of feast groups, very dear friends of mine, that a few years ago would have had nothing to do with the Passover on an Easter Sunday. I'm going to show you a calendar where that's exactly what they did this year. There's a calendar challenge. So we're going to examine several different feast calendars, searching for unity, and I only chose 4 of them. The first one is from Yahweh's Assembly in Yeshua. We're going to look at their 2018 calendar and the 2013 calendar. They're based out of Kingdom City, Missouri. But I want to show you 2 calendars so you can see the confusion that is there. Also, Yahweh's Restoration Calendar for 2018, they're also based out of Missouri. Numbers 2, 3, and 4 are all Adventist feast-based calendars. These are calendars that I receive, and I started looking at them. Number 3 is Lighted Ways Ministry from Rosebrook, Oregon, and number 4, Bible Explorations Calendar for 2018. And we're looking to see if there's unity between these calendars, because there really used to be unity between the calendars. There isn't anymore. Okay, this is Yahweh's Assembly in Yeshua. This is their 2018 calendar. I'm going to show you a full screen of all the calendars, and then we're going to break it down. So we'll do a little review, and then I'll show you another one where it's easier to see what's happening. I looked over this calendar very carefully, and there was not one thing on it that told me that they were using Equi-LUX. I had to figure that out by myself. So they've started everything with Equi-LUX on March the 17th. And of course, they've got their new moons listed there on the side. March 18th had this, they're going by the sliver moon. And then they just simply count 14 days from that winter sliver moon to the full moon, and Passover begins at sunset on March 31. So let's look at the big picture. This is still their 2018 calendar, because you're going to be looking at calendars too, and you need to figure out what's going on. So there's their March 17 Equi-LUX. They're using that as their Tekufa alternative. Remember, they did not say anywhere on their paperwork that they were going by Equi-LUX. They just put it there. And I guess their members don't care. There's the crescent moon, which is really handy, was the next day on March the 18th. And like I said, they count 14 days from that winter sliver moon. And guess where Passover lands? On Easter Sunday. This calculation is chosen so Passover is not celebrated at the end of April. That's why a lot of them are switching to Equi-LUX so that they can move Passover earlier in the month. And now it's landing on Easter Sunday. They just feel like the end of April and early May is way too late. And it certainly is way too late to celebrate Passover. But I'm asking, is this the scriptural method to correct the problem? If you don't want to have your Passover at the end of April, do you just go choose another date or an Equi-LUX? I had someone come up to me last year at Passover and said to me, Passover was March the 10th. And I went, March the 10th? Where did you get March the 10th? Well, now I know. I know now what they did. I'll have to go and look for sure. But they were probably going by Equi-LUX, and the moon that was closest to the Equi-LUX, which was before the Equi-LUX, and they were calculating from there to get a Passover on March the 10th. It's just incredible what's out there for calendars. This is still Yahweh's Assembly in Yeshua. This is their 2013 calendar. I want to show you what's happening. Again, they did not tell you they're working with Equi-LUX, which is usually March the 17th. But this time, they're using the crescent moon on March the 12th. 8 days before the spring equinox. And now they're counting 14 days from a very old winter sliver moon to get to the full moon. And their Passover is going to begin at sunset on March 26th, and Passover Day will be the 27th. Let's do this on a big screen so you can see it a little bit better. There's your Equi-LUX. There's your new moon on the 12th. And Passover Day happens to land on March the 27th. Easter would be on March the 31st that year. This is an extremely early date for any kind of a Passover. It's way too early. Was it set this way to be celebrated before Rome's Good Friday on March 29th and their Easter Sunday on the 31st? So now look what happened. In 2018, the sliver moon was chosen after the Equilux, and in 2013, the sliver moon was chosen many days before the Equilux because they want to have their Passover at a certain time. What are the rules of this calendar? Do both of these calendars hover around Roman dates? They're kind of hanging on to Rome. You know what? When Rome says that the apostate daughters have to come back, guess what? These feast calendars are going back to Rome. They're snugging up to Rome. Does this ministry recognize there is a serious problem with the moon month calculation? Are they substituting Equi-LUX for Tekufa to compensate for a huge problem that they don't know what to do with? Okay, let's go on. This is Yahweh's Restoration Ministry. It is an Adventist feast calendar based out of Missouri. This is their 2018 calendar. They say that the new moon is March 18th. They're saying that Passover is March 31. So you already know they're using Equi-LUX. They're not using equinox. Let's take a closer look at this counterfeit calendar. Is everybody hanging in there with me? Nod your heads.
Yeah.
All right.
Good job, Charlie. Good job.
Okay. There is March 17th. That is Equi-LUX. That's the day that they're using for this calendar. And the next crescent moon, lucky for them, was March the 18th. It didn't happen March 16th, so that was handy. And they do the same thing. They count 14 days. And this is still a winter moon because we have not passed the spring marker yet. And Passover begins at sunset on March 31. And there you have, same thing, Passover Day on Easter Sunday. This is an Adventist feast calendar. Gives me goosebumps. Okay, this is an Adventist feast calendar from Salem, Oregon, from Lighted Way Ministries. And I don't mean to be picking on them, but I do want you to see what's happening here. We love the people at Lighted Way. We adore them. On the back page of this calendar, it lists exactly the reason why Lighted Way changed their calendar, substituting equinox for Equi-LUX this year. This is the year they did this. They are the only ones that offered an explanation, and I really felt that we needed to honor that and see what they had to say, because none of the other calendars told you why they did it. So here's what they say. The spring Tekufa is the Tekufa which marks the end of the biblical year. Like the new moon, the astronomical equinox and the citable Tekufa are on different days. The astronomical vernal equinox, as dictated by the Council of Nicaea, takes place on March 20 or 21. Do you see what's happening here? The blame is going back to Constantine. But the visual Tekufa, or this is the day when the hours of daylight and darkness are both 12 hours, the visual Tekufa is actually on March 17. And this is why the older farmers' almanacs listed March 17, not March 20, as the vernal equinox or Tekufa in Hebrew. They are linking now with the Farmer's Almanac over Scripture, and they're blaming Constantine for making the equinox pagan, so they have to go find some alternative to get away from what they feel is pagan. The Tekufa is a significant date because it is the biblical end of the year. In other words, the year doesn't biblically end until March 17th. But that's not all. There's another part of the quote. In the Eastern Gentile way of thinking, the new year should begin the next day. I agree with that. If you have an old year that's ending, the next day should be the New Year day. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
But
yes.
they're saying that's not how it works, though. You know, not in the Bible. It doesn't work that way. Just as the end of time is not a single day, but a period of time, there is a shadow picture given of this every year. Here's their reason. March 17 is the last day of the year, but the period of the end continues until the next new moon following the Tekufa. And I'm saying, where do you find that in Scripture? So the first day of the new biblical year is actually New Moon Day, which happens to be March the 19th. With this date as the first day, Passover is the 14th day, or 13 days later. How do we know that the Tekufa is the end of the year biblically? The word Tekufa is Strong's 8622. It appears 4 times in the Scripture. We did that last week. That part is true. In 2 Chronicles 24:23, we find the term Tekufa connected with being the end of the year occurring in the spring. That is true. This same verse is translated as end of the year and spring in other Bible versions. One of them is the Revised Standard Version. So, friends, what I'm seeing here is there is some truth and there is some error, and it's all mixed together. There was nothing given here in this explanation of what they gave quite a lengthy explanation on the back of the calendar, but there wasn't really any Scripture to provide proof of what they had done. And I saw a hand, Shiloh. If you can just well, go ahead, make your comment.
All right, Charlene, thank you very much. Shalom again to you and everyone in the house. Shalom, shalom. Thank you very much for your kind courtesy, sacrifice, and commitment and all that. Now, this statement, I'm a little perplexed here, and I'm sorry for buttoning, but I don't quite get how they jumped from the 18th, which I was expecting they would say, well, it'll be from the 18th to the 19th. Am I not understanding correctly?
I will show you that on the next slide.
Thank you very well. Thank
Okay,
you.
so let's go to the next slide. I'll show it to you in a little bit bigger scale. So what they're saying is that March the 17th is Tekufa, right there. And then the very next day is when they sight the crescent moon at sunset. So the crescent moon is sighted at sunset, but the new moon day is the next day on the 19th. That's what they're doing. And then you count your 14 days, and Passover begins at sunset on the 31st, and Passover day is on April 1. This is Rome's Easter. What is this, the third calendar that we've done where Passover is landing on Rome's Easter? So Shiloh, they're using the 19th because that's the first day of the new moon day. They sight the moon at sunset, and then the next day is called the first day. Does that help? Okay. And this is a ministry that, you know, in years past wouldn't have a single thing to do with Rome's Easter. Okay. Bible Explorations are dear friends of ours as well. And they're an Adventist feast camp in Terra Bella, California. Wonderful group of people. Let's look and see what they did. I'm saying they have a counterfeit Passover calculation. But you know what? They stayed true to the equinox. They're marking equinox as March the 20th. They have that absolutely right. They did not change their calendar, but they're staying true to looking for the next crescent moon, which was April the 17th. That's the way most of the feast calendars used to work it. Then they count their 14 days to the full moon, and Passover begins April the 30th at sunset. So Passover Day would actually be May the 1st. It's a very late Passover. The first time that I did Passover with Lighted Way in 2007, it was, I think, a May 5th Passover, or May 6th. It was really late. But there's a lot of feast camps now that are saying that is too late for Passover. We've got to do something to get Passover earlier in the month. So let's just do a close-up of Terabella. They had equinox right. Got to give them credit for that. They went to the first new moon after the equinox. That's what they've always done. They stayed true. There was their Passover. They're just getting ready for Passover this weekend. Probably people are at camp, setting up camp, and they're getting ready to celebrate their Passover festival. And so I do have to give them credit because they did not waver. They did not change from what they used to always do. They have remained true to that. So I do give them credit for that. Although we know with the moon study that calendar doesn't have anything to do with the moon. And like I said, Passover might be late, but they did not change their rules. I think we can give them a thumbs up for that. Okay, problem number 3, this Equi-LUX disunity. There are many former equinox calendars that are changing over to Equi-LUX, like I've already shown you. And these are calendars that come from well-known feast camps within, our circle. And all of these are using a moon month. And they calculate their year start. Every year it seems to be becoming more difficult. The new moon is just prior to Equi-LUX. That's going to cause a problem. And if there are 2 new moons in a month, that could cause a problem. And there was 2 new moons in January and also in March. So that can cause a problem for all of the moon calendars, but it could cause a problem for Equi-LUX as well. So the calendars that we just looked at were all from the United States, but let's check further. Let's look a little bit further. So what I did was when I saw this presentation from Lighted Way, that they were switching from equinox to Equi-LUX, I said, I'm going to go check around the world a little bit. I know that the sliver moon is sighted on March the 18th, and I chose 12 different places around the world. I just randomly chose 12 places. This is what I chose. Inuvik in the Northwest Territories, Anchorage, Alaska, a place way up in Norway. I chose Salem, Oregon, and Roseburg, Oregon, Orlando, Florida, Jerusalem, I thought that was a good choice, Mexico City, Panama, Cape Town, South Africa, Sydney, Australia, and I went down to the Falkland Islands. So I'm just going to show you on a map where I was kind of skipping around. And by the way, you cannot do this without a computer. So there, number 1, that's where Inuvik is, way up there. Alaska is in that general area, number 2. Number 3, I chose this place at Norway, way up there. 4 and 5, that represents Salem and Roseburg, Oregon. And number 6 represents Orlando. And number 7, that's Jerusalem. Number 8 is Mexico City. Number 9 is Panama. Then you come down to Cape Town, South Africa, and you look at Sydney, Australia, and finally Falkland Islands way down there at the tip of South America. So I just wanted to give you this to give you kind of a quick visual that I chose random places all over the world for my little search. And this is what I found. The claim is that Equi-LUX is on March 17th. But is it all over the world on March the 17th? Remember we said the equinox was March the 20th at the same time everywhere in the world for everybody. Does Equi-LUX stay true to that set of rules? Well, in Inuvik, Their equilux was March the 18th. Alaska and Norway and Salem and Roseburg, their equilux was March 17th. Florida, it could have been the 15th or the 16th. Jerusalem was the 16th. Mexico City had equilux on the 14th. And Panama, it could have been March 5, 6, or 7. Cape Town had equilux on March the 23rd. And Sydney and the Falkland Islands, their equilux was March the 29th. And I'm here to tell you, friends, that only took me about 15 minutes. You need a computer. You cannot do it without a computer. It took me 15 minutes to do that. And when I saw that we had equilux times from random places around the world between March 5 and March 29, then I knew there was a problem. And that can throw out equilux right there.
Charlene?
Now, what?
Charlene?
Yes.
If
yes.
the bride of Yahusha was observing by the Equi-LUX, would they be united around the world at one time by observing the Equi-LUX? I don't think that's possible.
No way.
From the 5th to the 29th, there's not a possible chance the Equi-LUX could provide a united bride. Am I correct?
I think you are. This is such a large spread from the 5th to the 29th. That's 24 days. That's over 3 weeks. And you definitely will not get at Pentecost on the same day around the world. And if the bride is going to be anointed at Pentecost, definitely there's disunity from one end to the other.
Thank you.
Absolutely incredible. Mm-hmm. This is slide 54. Now, what the Equilux, yes?
Thank you. You know, it kind of looks like Equilux is like the moon. It's all over the place. It's never fixed. Why would they use this? We need to pray for our brothers and sisters, man. We really need to pray for this group.
Yes. Yes, we do. We've been doing a lot of covenant calendar studies, and we've seen how simple and beautiful and elegant, easy Yahweh's covenant calendar is. And when you start looking at this kind of thing, you just go, wow, you know what? It's such a bondage. There's such a burden, a heavy burden, and they don't know it. Just try to show them, I guess. I don't know. Yahuwah knows how to get their attention. We'll do our best till then. But what I wanted to say is that what they're doing is they're saying that Equi-LUX is equal sunrise, equal sunset. That's how they're basing this. So they're saying 12, and they're saying about, so they're covering their bases. They're saying about 12 hours of daylight and about 12 hours of night. Now, when I hear equal day and night, in my mind, that means 12 hours of light, 12 hours of darkness. I'm just kind of cut and dried. That's math. Okay? I want you to look at the sunrise, sunset times for each of these places. Some of them will be exactly the same, and some of them will be quite different. So I'm just going to run through it, and we're going to compare the sunrise, sunset times. Are you ready? Here we go. So Inuvik was pretty close, 9:02 and 9:05. Anchorage was close, 8:09 and 8:07. Norway was 10 minutes out. Look at Salem and Roseburg. They were exactly the same. And Florida, Orlando, Florida, they had 2 days, and they're a minute out on both days. So which day are you going to choose for Equilux? Jerusalem was out just 1 minute. Mexico City was exactly the same as was Panama, but Panama has 3 days doing that. March 5, 6, and 7 all have sunrise at 6:29 and sunset at 6:29. So which day do you want to choose for Equilux? And who makes that decision? Cape Town also had exactly the same, but Sydney, Australia was what is it, 10 minutes out, and the Falkland Islands were out a few minutes as well. So to me, they weren't all equal day and night. That's what they're saying, but they say about, so that if it's 10 minutes out or 15 minutes out, it's not a big deal. Like, who makes these rules, right? Okay. Equilux dates all the way from March the 5th to March the 29th, so you can go and take your pick, whatever you want. If you want to celebrate an early Passover, I guess you better go down to Panama. So let's look at where these Equilux dates are on the map. And remember, they're using Tekufa. It's a counterfeit Tekufa on March the 17th. March the 18th just happened to have their sliver moon. They were really lucky there. Okay, the 17th, March 17th, Equilux, these three areas. Anchorage, Salem and Roseburg, Oregon, and Norway all had a March 17th Equilux. Remember, Inuvik was March 18th. Orlando, you could take your choice. It was March 15 or 16. Jerusalem, Equilux was on March 16th. Mexico City, March the 14th. And then remember Panama, March 5, 6, or 7. It's 3 days in a row. You can take your choice. South Africa, March the 23rd. Falkland Islands and Sydney, Australia, March the 29th. And I'm saying, is there something wrong with this picture? What do you think, you guys? That's what Equilux does for you. Nothing united whatsoever. So that's enough of that. Let's do problem number 4. We have been saying for, what, the last 12 or 13 weeks, the whole covenant calendar study is based on the cornerstone of the word evening in Genesis 1, verse 5. If you do not understand the proper definition of the word evening, and of course morning, you will not be able to sort out the problems with calendar. That is where everything stems from. And what I'm saying, if these people that are using Equilux would have just done a very simple study in the scriptures, they would have detected this counterfeit, and they might have had a chance to deal with it effectively. But you need to study these terms properly, evening and morning. This would give them a good understanding for the twilights, and that would show them that the scriptural definition for the twilights places that part of the 24-hour cycle with the light season. The twilights are a mixture of light and night when the sun is below the horizon. The scriptures tell us that those little periods of time belong to the day season. When twilights are counted as part of the light season, Equilux no longer aligns with a single thing in scripture. It's totally gone. If Equilux was really about equal day and equal night, there would be no problem. But Equilux completely revolves around looking at the sun above the horizon, or when it's just coming up. So Equilux has a problem with twilight. Equilux bases the calculations of equal day and equal night according to sunrise and sunset, where you live, okay? And there's huge variances. Equilux does not take into consideration the fact that both the dawn and the dusk twilights are part of the light that belongs to the light season. Not one of these calendars even knows this. Therefore, the equal calculation of time for sunrise to sunset is not identical to the calculation for the beginning of dawn twilight to the ending of dusk twilight according to your scriptures and according to Yahuwah. These two are as far apart as black is from white. So just a little picture on twilights. They're constantly moving around the earth. There's 3 of them. The lightest one is the civil twilight. You can see then the nautical twilight. and there's an astronomical twilight, and the very darkest blue is where there's night. There is no light from the sun whatsoever. That's just a quick little picture. We'll do another one. This is a watercolor trying to define twilight, but it shows it incorrectly because this particular drawing is showing the twilights as belonging to the night season. Can you see that? They have the horizon there, the sun below the horizon, and they've got the civil, the nautical, and the astronomical twilight as being on the side of the night season. They really belong on the side of the day season. So my challenge is for somebody that can do me a watercolor, what would it look like if you put these twilights where they belong? I'd like to see that. But according to Yahuwah's calendar, any portion of the 24-hour cycle that has light in the sky that has been provided by the sun, whether the sun is above or below the horizon, that part is counted as being part of the light season. Period. If there's light in the sky from the sun, it belongs to the light season. Equi-LUX discards all of the twilights as being part of the equation for equal day and night, and the only way for Equi-LUX to be easily calculated is by using sunrise and sunset times in every place. And I'm saying you cannot do this without a computer. So if you don't have any electricity, you don't have any power, you don't have a computer, there's no way you can figure this out. It's impossible. And I'm saying there has to be an answer to this dilemma somewhere. So the question is this. If Equi-LUX is not an equal light season and night season, then can't we just go and find the date that really is a true equal light and night and call that day Equi-LUX? Do you understand what I'm saying here? Because I'm thinking, well, I can go, I've got a computer, I can go check these astronomical twilights, I can go find them all. And if I can just find twilights that are included in part of the day and night, so 12 hours of twilights with the day season and 12 hours of night, then that day is going to be Equi-LUX. So I went and I did that search, and you've got to have a computer. And I'm here to tell you, I spent about 2 or 3 hours on this part. I didn't get anywhere. I only took 4 places because it took me a long time. I chose Inuvik, Jerusalem, Cape Town, and Salem, 4 random places. And in Inuvik, it was the only place that was close to equal day and night. I'm talking about putting the twilights in with the light season. And they had 8:06 and 8:08. It was pretty close, but the date was January 22 or 23. It wasn't even close to equinox. For Jerusalem, the very closest times were in December 2017, and all of the twilights in the night season, they were an hour difference between the day and night season. I couldn't find anything closer than within an hour. Cape Town had the same results. Panama, there wasn't even anything close to equal day and night, according to Yahuwah's definition. And Salem, Oregon, I did find a 6 o'clock in the morning and a 6:20 p.m. at night, but it was December 21, and that wasn't close to equinox. There was not one date that qualifies anywhere on the calendar for a true Equi-LUX when using twilights. Not one. And that surprised me. I thought I'd find something, you know, maybe around the equator. I found nothing. So that was out. Problem number 5 is looking to the sun. Moses has 2 very strong commands in Deuteronomy. And we did mention this a week or 2 ago, that these 2 commands are not found within the 613 commands that are supposed to be Torah commands. Conveniently, they left these 2 out. Let's read parts of them. If there be found any among you that hath gone and served other gods and worshipped them, either the sun or moon or any of the host of heaven, which I have not commanded, then, Deuteronomy 4, unless thou lift up thine eyes unto heaven, and seest the sun and the moon and the stars, even all the host of heaven, shouldest be driven to worship them and serve them, then guess what? The penalty was death for linking worship times with the created lights in the sky. Covenant calendar observes the light, not the object that provides the light, and there's a big difference there. So there's an equinox accusation that came to my desk in, I think it was from the calendar email. It came in the form of a question to Covenant Calendar, and this is what it said. Would it be sun worship for Covenant Calendar to look to the sun for equinox? And I'm saying that's the wrong question. It's not the right question. Obviously, this person didn't know enough about Covenant Calendar yet, but why is that the wrong question? Take a look, everyone. Check out your shadow. You will have your back to the sun and not your face if you're checking your shadow on the day of equinox. You will not be looking at the sun. And besides that, the equinox has 4 components, not just one. The first and most important one is the Mazzaroth, constellations in the sky. Then you need a sun to provide the light. You need the light to provide the shadow, the sign that tells you equinox has happened, and you need the earth to receive the shadow. You need those 4 components for equinox, and you will not be looking at the sun. The answer is no. So the next question, how does one determine the equilux? Guess what, everyone? By looking to sunrise and sunset to determine what is supposed to be equal day and equal night. And I'm saying, could that be considered as sacred regard for the sun or sun worship? Because Moses said, don't you even think about looking to the sun. And if you're setting your feast dates according to what the sunrise and the sunset are doing, and then using equilux on top of it all, y'all have mercy. Let's look at the definition of equinox Yahuwah's way. The vernal equinox, which we know as Tekufa, it is one 24-hour cycle for the whole world. This is the exact time when the celestial equator intersects the sun's ecliptic path in the heavens. And these 2 points are fixed by authority of Yahuwah. The earth receives the light, and the light casts the shadow to determine the day of the equinox. So we need to be watching the sign, just like Hezekiah did when he saw the sundial. The equinox can be physically observed by plotting the shadow of the sun. That's your scriptural observation requirement right there. And on equinox day, the shadow does not turn or arc. That's what you'll find in James 1:17, no shadow of turning. And it depends on what device that you're using. You might not see a shadow at all. There could be no shadow, or the line will be absolutely straight. There will be no arc in that shadow line. So that is what we need to learn to do. The equinox is calculated by the perfect movement of the heavenly lights of the Mazzaroth and the sun. And this is by Yahuwah's design. And everybody take note, the moon has absolutely no involvement in the equinox or the equilux timing. The moon is not part of this at all. No way. And I didn't put it in this study, the word lux, the definition of lux. Maybe you want to go and look it up and see what these old definitions are. I will bring it up when we do the moon, when we actually study 3391 for the lunation cycle, and you're going to be shocked at what lux links with. There should be no question about the equinox authority. The equinox is the day that Yahuwah placed in the physics of creation, which witnesses that the actual great change from the old year to the new year is in process. And Abib 1 is going to follow the day of no shadow or no shadow arc. You do not have to wait for a moon. When the year is over, everybody, the next day is the first day of the new year, even on the Roman calendar. You ask any child at school on December 31, what's the next day? They're going to say January 1 is the first day of the new year. There is nothing in the scriptures that says you have to wait for how many days for a sliver moon to show up. That's not even logical. Okay, let's look at some ancient civilizations, because the accusation was equinox is pagan. So you've got to get away from it at all costs. It is pagan, don't have a single thing to do with it. And this is one of the pyramids down there in Mexico. It's called the Snake of Sunlight. And on equinox day, apparently that snake, that shadow moves just like a snake crawling up and down the pyramid. And thousands of visitors a year come to this place to see this happen. You can go too if you've got, you can book your tickets 4 or 5 years in advance. Takufa is properly understood in harmony with the instructions of Moses, who was learned in all the wisdom of the Egyptians. They were smart people mathematically. So were all of the ancient pagan civilizations. These people were very intelligent when it came to math. Well advanced in equinox calculation. They constructed huge pyramids to depict this one moment in the sky twice a year. Ancient civilizations cannot do one thing to alter the equinox. That moment has been orchestrated by Yahuwah, and nobody can change it. Well, what about pagan history and equinox? Did the pagans use equinox to calculate their feast day to worship their pagan gods? Absolutely. The pagan feasts always counterfeited Yahuwah's feasts. And why did they use equinox? Because it was reliable. It happened at the same time every year. There wouldn't have been any reason to consider Equi-LUX. You can't mark it with a pyramid. Just because the pagans would accurately calculate the equinox, does that really make equinox pagan? And the answer is no. But we've got feast camps that are now using Constantine's quote to say that equinox is pagan because Rome is using equinox to calculate her Easter Sunday. Have you ever heard of anything so ridiculous? Okay, I want you to look at this. There is a gold dotted broken line. That's the sun's ecliptic path, and you'll see a pink one. That is the celestial equator. And the point where the sun's ecliptic path intersects the celestial equator, right there where that star is, that determines the equinox. When that happens, like two hula hoops coming together, when that happens, that's the moment of equinox. Nobody can manipulate that. I would just like you to notice the pyramids here and the Great Sphinx. This is from Egypt. Someone's just done a simple drawing here. But let's look at some other examples. See what we have. Here's the Great Sphinx, aligned with the equinox sunrise on the west bank of the Nile. So if you want to know when equinox is, just go build a sphinx. Every equinox, this is what happens. Not just there, but a Cambodian temple. When the equinox happens, the sun is going to be directly aligned with the peak of that temple. These are not Christians. These are not Yahuwah's feast-keeping people. But they know how to calculate equinox. The easy way. The Giza Pyramid. Look at this on the day of equinox. This should give you goosebumps, everybody. No shadow of turning. This is the Giza Pyramid on the day of equinox. How in the world did they construct these things to show no shadow of turning? That shadow is directly straight across. It only happens one day in the spring and 1 day in the fall. It's not pagan. I'm saying pyramid math. The design of the pyramids can accurately calculate only the equinox because the movements of the Mazzaroth and the sun are perfect and they are untouched by any man, including pagans. So the spring and the autumn equinox with the 3 little pyramids in the front of the huge pyramid, this is a simple drawing to show you, when you get those 2 little shadows like that, that is going to be either the spring or the autumn equinox. March 21, sometimes it's March 20, or September 23. The summer solstice will have a shadow that projects on the Giza pyramid like this, just 1 shadow. Perfect, June 21. And the winter solstice will have the 3 shadows. They were pretty smart. Equi-LUX is not part of this equation, everybody. Only equinox. It is the only time that is perfect. Okay, we're finished with that. This is the mystery number 6, the sanctuary. It's only a few slides, but I want you to think about what's going on here. There is a special design for the sanctuary that needs to have some consideration. Will the sanctuary have the last word on what to do with the equinox? Will the sanctuary declare equinox as divine, or will they say it's a pagan counterfeit? We all say the sanctuary has truth. Let's look and see. Looking from the top, the sanctuary always faced east. It had 2 pillars at the front. The one on the right side was Jason, or however you say it. The one on the left was named Boaz. That's a whole study in itself. Everybody should try to look into that study, what those names mean. And on the day of equinox light, the light from the sun came straight into the sanctuary, straight back. And if there would not have been a curtain in the most holy place, it would have gone straight back to the Ark of the Covenant. That was the day of equinox. On the summer solstice, the sun came through Jason, right to that corner of the holy place. And you already know what's going to happen on the winter solstice. The sun passes through Boaz into the other corner of the sanctuary. And that was how they could tell the summer and winter solstice and the vernal and fall equinox. The priests always had their backs to the sun, just like you're going to if you're looking for your shadow, except for in Ezekiel 8. Now, why would Yahuwah design his sanctuary to receive these lights if equinox is only linked to paganism? That's my question. That should be your question too.
What a slide.
Sanctuary is...
I want a copy of that slide for posting around the world.
You can have anything you want. The sanctuary is Yahuwah's design. The first question I had is, if the equinox is purely a pagan invention, then why did Yahuwah insist his sanctuary be constructed to receive the light directly into the most holy place on the day of equinox? Why didn't he have the sanctuary face north? You know, I've often wondered that because his throne is in the sides of the north. And I've always wondered why he insisted that it face east. Now I'm beginning to understand. Second question. Or was this Yahuwah's simple and perfect design for his people to declare his year start the day after the equinox without having to look to the moon or the sun? Do you think that's a possibility? What's the conclusion of this matter? I have a couple scriptures. Ecclesiastes 12:13. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear Yahuwah and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. And this is including Torah commands for covenant calendar. Because if the bride is going to understand when he is coming back. She's got to know these commands of calendar. And it's the glory of Yahuwah to conceal a thing, but the honor of kings is to search out a matter. And who are we in the Melchizedek priesthood? Kings and priests? That's us. And Luke 12:2, for there is nothing covered that shall not be revealed, neither hid that shall not be known. Yahuwah's covenant calendar has to come out so that his bride knows what's going on. She's got to know what's going on. Otherwise, calendar is useless. I just have a final thought to ponder. The points of Yahuwah's covenant calendar, which are to be presented to others, must be rooted in his word, not in man's ways. And it is important in defending this marvelous teaching that everything is considered. We should never consider arguments that are not wholly sound, because while they may silence the accuser, they do not uphold the truth of Yahuwah's covenant calendar. And I'm seeing a lot of calendars that come through to my desk, shaking their accusing finger at me. They don't give any scripture to back up what they're doing. But I have to, Tim and I have to, and we can, because we've looked. Yahuwah has helped us to find these gems. But boy, oh boy, you better have your stuff based in scripture. Scriptural arguments must be presented that will not only silence every opponent, but will also bear the closest and the most searching scrutiny. And you know what? Every calendar is accountable, not just Yahuwah's calendar. Every calendar out there is accountable to come under a thorough scrutiny with scripture. And what we're finding is that Yahuwah's calendar is the only one that can be completely found in covenant Torah between Genesis 1 and Exodus 24:11. That's amazing. Equi-LUX has too much variance to qualify for Yahuwah's plan for year start. You use Equilux, you're going to be lost and confused, unsure, unclear, perplexed, disoriented, and bewildered. And you know what? The same goes for the moon and the sun. And the only way out of this dilemma, is this definition of the word evening, because it is the cornerstone for unraveling the Equilux confusion and all of the calendar there right now. Evening is the cornerstone. So if you're confused, go that way. Equilux is a whirlwind of confusion which can only be exposed by a proper study of Yahuwah's covenant calendar. Now, I know that not all of you have had the full study yet, because we're just going to be getting into the moon starting next week. But trust me, by the time we get through with Yahuwah's complete covenant calendar, you're going to be able to do this without any problems. We're just giving you some tools in your tool belt to show you how this works. There are answers. And this is where we were at one time. We were in darkness. For you were sometimes in darkness, but now you are light in Yahuwah. So walk as children of the light, not in darkness, and have no fellowship with the unfruitful work of darkness. It says, reprove them. Oh my, it's hard. We're not trying to reprove anybody. We're just trying to share what we found, and that's not even easy. And then he says, let's do it all in decency and in order. So all the problems are solved by looking into Yahuwah's word. And so far, what we have found, Yahuwah's covenant calendar, it detects all the counterfeits and it solves every calendar problem. And we're also finding it's easy and anybody can do it. So here's the project that we're supposed to be working on. We want to learn how to determine the equinox by tracking no shadow or a shadow with no arc. We talked about that last week. We need to learn how to do this. We cannot depend on our computer systems. We need to learn how to track this shadow so that when equinox happens, we know how to count the feasts and festivals. And next week, Revelation 12 and the woman standing on the moon Tim is going to present this study to us. And here's the question. It is controversial. Does the moon have a prominent position in Revelation 12 or not? And that's the end.
Oh man, hallelujah. Let's give Abba a big hand. Thank you, Abba. Hallelujah. Very good. Excellent, excellent study. Hallelujah. Boy, if,
Well,
that doesn't make things clear, we need new glasses.
Fabulous delivery, Charlene. It was terrific. Thank you very, very much.
Excellent, excellent. Any questions out there? Comments? Let's open up the mic for questions, comments. Joy. Yes, sir.
I just want to thank Charlene for that wonderful study.